Simply put, depression is the lack of happiness in a person because of a decrease or lack of happiness hormones in the body. So the person would feel a constant frustration, loss of passion, severe sadness and never-ending negative thoughts. So the person will no longer feel happy about the things he used to do before. In the past this was called anguish, and there is always a reason behind it. There is a specific reason behind this sadness. It can be due to the loss of a dear person, unsuccessful business, or even failure in school. That's why Islam teaches us to always be patient in tribulation. And to know that with hardships comes ease. And that if we are patient, Allah will send good things towards our way. Allah SWT says, "But give good news to the steadfast." And this depression can be due to something organic inside your body. Either because of lack of a vitamin or lethargy in one of the glands. All of this affects the release of happiness hormones in a natural way. That's why the Prophet said, "O worshippers of Allah, use remedies. For indeed Allah did not make a disease, but He made a cure for it." At the end, if the problem is solved, then depression would go away. And the body would go back to release happiness hormones normally again. And the person would go back to live his life normally. But after time passed and humanity developed, a new type of depression emerged. Namely, depression without a reason. There is no specific reason for this depression. In recent years, the percentage of depressed people increased to 25% in the whole world, and it's still raising. The loss of passion amongst people became a normal thing. And most of the things we felt happy while doing no longer make us happy. People started acquiring new habits as the times passed. Man, we don't even eat normally anymore. Most of us always holds his smartphone while eating, and most of us easily gets bored of everything. It's quite scary when you think about it. Today we'll generally speak about the things that might lead us to the point of depression without a reason. We go back in time to 1930, that's when drug trafficking spread. After drug trafficking spread in last century's 1930s. Some researchers were studying the case of drug addiction. Why would people keep taking drugs and can't stop? They found out that drugs stimulate a part in the brain to an extremely high degree. This part stimulates when we eat and drink or when we play. But drugs stimulate it in an extremely high degree. And when this part is stimulated, it releases a substance responsible for our feeling of ecstasy and happiness. It's considered one of the happiness hormones, but only temporary happiness. When they learned this, they made an experiment on rats in 1950. They brought a rat and put a device on his head which stimulates the brain to release a specific hormone. This hormone is a neurotransmitter that is located in our brains. They put this rat inside a closed box, but inside this box there was a button. The button is connected to the device put on the rat's head. The moment the rat pushes the button, the device will turn on automatically. And the device will start stimulating the brain of the rat to release this hormone. The researchers were waiting for the rat to push the button while the rat was moving around the box. It was moving inside the box until it suddenly pushed the button. So the device started stimulating the rat's brain to release the hormone. The rat was confused from the emotions it received. It started feeling ecstatic and excited and happy, and it was pushing the button repeatedly. And every time its brain would release the hormone inside its body in a high degree. Until all it was doing was only pushing the button. It even refused to eat or drink, and it never left the button's side. It kept pushing the button until it fell unconscious. The researchers did the same experiment, but this time with another box. In this box there was something that separated the rat from the button. This area is an electric field. The rat will get electrified the moment it passes through it. The researchers wanted to know whether the rat would sacrifice his health and life, and would endure all these electric shocks just to push the button. And the result was that the rat endured all the electric shocks to push the button. So the researchers realized that this hormone located in our brain is very strong. And it's primarily an addictive hormone. After this experiment, big companies started conducting in-depth researches into this hormone. And they started trading in this hormone located inside our bodies without implanting any device on us. So what is this hormone? Depression trade. Peace be upon you, God bless you, and may you and I enter paradise by God's will. What made me make this video is the widespread of videos that state how happy we were before 2020. I'm sure you've seen them before. They state that our lives before 2020 were full of joy and life. But it completely transformed after 2020 and it became full of depression and oppression. And many people even lost passion in life. I found out that the percentage of depressed people greatly and clearly increased in recent years. And from this point my journey to discover a whole history of a whole trade which I named depression trade started. But before we start we need to know that our brains release a specific hormone for each emotion we experience. For example, when we experience fear our body releases a hormone called adrenaline. And if we experience stress and anxiety our body releases another hormone called cortisol. All of these emotions are the result of hormones located in our bodies. Except for happiness, there are a lot of hormones or neurotransmitters related to happiness. And each hormone has a specific role different from another hormone, but they all lead to one result, the feeling of happiness. And the most important ones are two hormones, dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine is called the hormone of ecstasy, a hormone which gives you a temporary happiness for a specific period. A hormone which gives you a temporary happiness for a specific period, then the happiness will go away. But what is the function of this hormone if it grants us temporary happiness then disappears? This hormone helps us make a specific choice and it stimulates us to face hardships for this choice. So it gives us then a feeling of ecstasy and excitement and a temporary feeling of happiness. If you are hungry, for example, your body will urge you to go eat, and when you eat you feel ecstatic and extremely happy. But the moment you are full this happiness goes away and all is left is that your stomach is full. All this happiness is a reward and a stimulation from your body to eat and not die. This hormone is a blessing from God because He lets us experience happiness from hard and boring activities. Like studying and working out, even when you clean your room or cook, even your job. They can all be a source of happiness in your day and your body always urges you to choose these things. And it rewards you for it. But the dark side of this hormone is that it's an addictive hormone. And that if it rapidly increases it will suffer a decrease of a similar degree. It will be a significant drop and its decrease will cause depression. This is where the second hormone come in play, which is considered an antidepressant. Namely the hormone of serotonin, the main hormone of happiness. The moment a significant drop of dopamine happens you start feeling depressed. So this hormone comes in to fight this depression inside you. But the problem is for this hormone to be released in your body there has to be a result for all the ecstasy you experienced. It's a hormone which you release by succeeding in many things. Unlike the hormone of ecstasy, this is not a momentary hormone. It lets you feel happiness for longer periods and in the long run. It makes your feelings balanced and it makes you calmer and more excited and even more confident. But the problem is if this hormone doesn't find any result from all the ecstasy inside you. Your body won't release an antidepressant, namely this hormone. And you'd have to deal with the significant drop in dopamine which will prove extremely hard. Because as soon as dopamine levels decrease this much your body starts urging you to search for things to increase your dopamine again. So you start searching for things that make you feel ecstatic to balance things out and return them like they were. That's where you become stuck in a closed circle of dopamine doses. To know whether you're stuck in this circle or not I want you to do a simple thing. I want you to do what the prophet did when he entered the cave of Hira and left his people. All the prophet had was his robe and food to satisfy his hunger. So I want you to let go of everything and empty your room even of furniture. And only enter your room with your clothes and food to satisfy your hunger. And stay in the room for only one day. The idea is not strange and it's not new because our ancestors would stay in mosques. Not only for days but for months. All they had was the clothes they wore and food to satisfy their hunger, and they would always worship Allah in the mosque every day without any distractions. So it's not impossible at all. It's a natural feeling that they experienced and coped with. The feeling inside you now is the intruder. If you think this is extremely hard and impossible for you, then there's high chance you're stuck in this circle of dopamine. Our topic today is a bit heavy, but it's very important and hopefully it will change the life of many of us. That's why today don't bring any snacks, put on your headphones so that you hear me clearly. And I want you to focus and follow me. Without further ado, let's start. A man is born free and everywhere he is in chains. This quote by a French philosopher holds a great meaning. Because most people think happiness consists in the unlimited choices and the freedom in these choices. That's why most of us think money is happiness. Because money gives him more choices and more freedom in these choices. Even though psychologists say otherwise. They say too much choice can produce depression. And all this takes us back to the words of the French philosopher that we're chained everywhere. You think that you're free in these choices, but you're not, since you're restricted by people's words. Restricted by society's traditions and restricted by even your mind. This is what we will talk about. There is a strong relationship between chasing this illusion of freedom and depression. If we take for example the freest country or the country that glorifies this freedom the most, it's the U.S. CNN states that the freest country, USA, suffers from unprecedented cases of depression. The depression percentage today reached 57.1% of the whole U.S., which is more than half. And the percentage is still increasing to this day. Here you can know that there really is a relationship between total freedom and depression. And all of this because us humans will always worship something as long as we are alive. And one of these things which we can worship is our mind. Us humans can't control 100% of our brain. You can feel your heartbeats, but you can't control them. The brain is another organ just like the heart. The same applies to your brain if you're faced with a lot of choices. And there is no expert in the choices who might help you. Your brain starts acting out and it starts taking it upon himself. And it starts comparing between these choices to reach a result or take a final decision. And the thing that will help you take that final decision is the hormone of ecstasy, the hormone of dopamine, which we previously mentioned. It's considered one of the happiness hormones. This hormone urges you to choose an option based on its color or appearance, and you'll then feel ecstatic and happy. But after that there will be a significant drop in this hormone, and this significant drop will cause depression. And besides Allah, SWT, nothing will free you from this depression except for the result in your hands. So if there is a positive result, then your body will release an antidepressant hormone. But if there is no result, and you'll start having a craving feeling for that thing. If you're not well educated about which choice is better for you and more suitable for your case and your diet, your brain will direct you to the Kit Kat. You'll eat it and it will give you a negative result which doesn't suit the diet you're following. This proves that we can't control our brain 100%. And our brain can control us and control our decision-making. But when did things become dangerous? It's when people started trading in the hormone of ecstasy. They trade in this hormone even though it's inside our bodies. They started producing options for people which release large amounts of this hormone, which is considered an addictive hormone. What made people who are not aware of the danger of these products consume them blindly? And amongst the most popular products in the market are drugs, pornography and gambling. And other things which Allah, SWT, has forbidden us from. These options release a very high ecstasy hormone, more than you can imagine. That's why there are people who are addicted to these things. But the problem is that all the results are negative. And after the high increase of this hormone, a significant drop happens, like we said. But the result in this case is negative. The body this time doesn't release any antidepressant, so their brains start urging them to increase the ecstasy hormone again, so that they get out of this feeling. So they become stuck in this closed circle. And they become slaves to their satisfaction and brain until stuck in a closed-off box, pushing the button every time to take a dose of dopamine, just like what happened with the rat. Allah, SWT, described them when he said, "They are just like cattle, but even more errant in their way." These people have cut off the rope between them and Allah, SWT, in search of freedom. They thought if they leave Allah's religion and His orders they will find freedom. That's why a lot of atheists exist. But at the end of the day they worship their minds, which led them to this stage. That's why the biggest suicide percentage is found in atheists. But the lowest suicide percentage in the whole world is the Muslims. Because they gave up to the order of Allah, SWT, who directed them to the best choices. Allah, SWT, says, "But whoever turns away from my reminder." Reminder here is Quran because Allah, SWT, says in another verse, "This Quran guides to what is most upright." It will guide you to your best option. The things that increase dopamine and make you stuck in a closed circle are things that Allah has forbidden things. Allah guides us away from these things because they lead you to worship your mind and your lust. That's why they have the highest suicide percentage and the highest depression percentage. And you find homeless people everywhere. They are not poor countries by any chance, but options were created for them without anything stopping them. And without anyone to show them that these options can lead them to peril. So they worshipped their minds, which led them to this road. May Allah help us. They became slaves of their minds and lust, which led them to this stage. Like Allah, SWT, said, "Have you considered him who has taken his desire for his God?" But after time had passed and in 1955, they found out that those who watch TV release the ecstasy hormone too, and in high amounts. It makes people sit behind the TV for long periods. And they would prefer to sit behind the TV than many things during the day. They realized that people can release this hormone just by viewing. Not just by using them or eating or doing something like gambling and the things that Allah, SWT, has forbidden. And they started realizing that people spend a lot of times watching films and series. So they started using this to their advantage and they started developing films and series. They had a rapid and clear development. In 1967, huge amounts of money started being spent on films. Even countries started getting into films and they landed many customers even among us Muslims. The situation for them was even better than drugs and all that stuff. Because there are specific customers for drugs, it's not legal everywhere. But this is legal everywhere and it also have a lot of customers. So they started spending a lot of money on it and films started gaining more and more success. They even gave that period the name of the Silver Era of films. They spread and they had a powerful momentum and were in constant development. It's the period where films transformed from black and white to colored films. After they conducted many studies and realized that colors can increase the hormone of ecstasy in our brains. And it increases our addiction to their products. Not only colors, but also the realism of the film. Starting from that period, films became more realistic. That's why that period was called the Silver Era of films. And films started gaining enormous profits, more than you can even imagine. To the point where even whole countries' economy relied on it. But all this changed in 1977. This powerful momentum started declining a bit. All this was because of the emergence of something called Atari. Yes, the same Atari we used to play with. Atari changed the game for films and series. Many addicts became very interested in it. The film market was only for adults, unlike Atari, which attracted both adults and young people. From this point, a powerful and a very rapid renaissance in video games started. It is what has gotten us to this current stage. You think all of this is science? No, it's a market, it's a dopamine trade. They take advantage of these addicts. They reach the point where they put your mind inside the game in virtual reality. They put you inside the game. Imagine the amount of dopamine that your body will release. This is where addicts truly started to appear. There are people who even died because of video games. This is what happened to a man in Taiwan after he played for 3 consecutive days. This is not the only case. There are many cases of death in the world because of it. It became an addiction just like drugs because it releases high levels of ecstasy hormone. And without any results, since it's a virtual world, not real. Imagine spending many years playing in this virtual world and achieving success in this world, not the real world. All his successes are in these games. When he goes out east, he won't attain any success. His hormone of serotonin is at 0. He'll stay stuck in these high doses of this hormone. The problem is that this hormone is a neurotransmitter, and every time the dopamine raises and falls and stays in this state. Some of this hormone receptors in the brain become dysfunctional and the addict's brain won't release the happiness hormone like before. Happiness hormone starts dropping, just like what happened to Bander, may Allah protect him. Thank God he is all right now. Just like Bander himself stated, he played video games all his life and he loved it. You know, I have been playing video games for a long time. I have been enjoying video games since I was young and I like the fact that I killed time thanks to it. This is very dangerous because it leaves your body in constant dopamine rise and fall. And since he was a kid. The problem is when Bander was young he denied the fact that he was depressed. Back then when I saw someone write, "I'm depressed," I would say, what's wrong with these people? Trying to look sad and all that. He didn't realize that he was walking the depression route. And he was destroying neuronal receptors of THS hormone. Even when Bander went to the psychiatrist, he found out that happiness hormones are not released enough. He told me that my brain suffers from overload. It was overused and it burnt out, so it stopped releasing the hormone responsible for happiness in the human body. And because of our everyday gaming at home, we also suffer from a significant lack of vitamin D, which we take from the sun. Yes, the sun, which also enhances our release of serotonin because our exposure to the sun boosts our serotonin, which is one of the happiness hormones. That's why there is something called winter depression. I had so little vitamin D that the doctor told me, "How are you alive? The natural is between 30 to 52, I had 6. But they didn't rely on video games only. In 1994 they released that they could develop mobile phones. This mobile phone is always with its owner wherever he goes. They tried to find a way to make this means of communication an addiction tool so that one can't live without. All this just for money, it's a trade. They succeeded eventually, and they created the first smartphone. It's called Simon. And they kept developing mobile phones to this day until it's no longer used for calls only. You can watch films and you can even play games. Even when social media was created, they made it so it releases high amounts of dopamine and ecstasy hormones. That's why the existence of mobile phones in our life became indispensable. It went from a device to make calls and take care of stuff to a completely different thing. A huge part of our lives that we literally can't live without. And things got worse when the pandemic happened in 2020. We were closed off in the house and many found a way out through games and social media and smartphone. They thought that it's a temporary way out of this crisis. As soon as the crisis passes, they'll return to their normal life. But this wasn't the case. Because the moment the crisis ended, they realized that they suffered another crisis, a mental crisis. This is exactly what happened because the number of Steam users had a significant raise after 2020, as you can see. And I think you all know what Steam is. Steam is the biggest video game platform where you can download games. Mobile phone use also saw a significant increase after 2020. That's why there is those clips that say our lives were better before 2020, it was full of life and joy. And how it became dark and depressing after 2020. This is a fact in the whole world. The situation was worsening to the point where people no longer enjoyed food, which is supposed to boost dopamine and ecstasy hormones to a high degree. But he can't enjoy it, that's why he eats while using his phone. So that his brain releases this hormone and he eats at the same time and doesn't feel like he's not normal. The problem is that many people are underestimating this. Since the kid is born, they expose him to these games until the end of the day, just to not hear his screams and cries during the day. The problem is that this is an addiction and it might lead him to depression and mental breakdown. Even if it doesn't lead him to depression, it might lead him to very bad times in the future. When some neuronal receptors malfunction, his body won't release this hormone in normal amounts. Dopamine starts decreasing and his body starts urging him to get into things which he doesn't want to. His body starts urging him to get into forbidden things. This is where the kid loses his connection with Allah, SWT, and his family and even his principles and morals. Because his body starts urging him to search for high doses of dopamine to increase this hormone. The problem is with the spread of films and series and video games today. And with the development we reached, many people have this disease and this addiction. And there are few people who survive this. May Allah help us. The problem is that many of us today don't know that small things during the day release large amounts of dopamine. And we feel highly ecstatic because of it. But because those options emerged, the small options that have great results no longer release dopamine. For example, reading books release high amounts of dopamine. Remember when I said sit in a room alone for one day, without any devices or consoles or a smartphone? You only have the clothes you're wearing and food to eat. Imagine that you're allowed to read a book then. Imagine how happy you'll feel. You'll feel that this book is a very beautiful thing in your day. You might read this book, finish it, and even ask for another book and come out of this ecstasy happy, when you might have never even considered the book as an option. These are the healthy and natural feelings which we're supposed to feel towards things. What is the ruling on video games which don't have music or images? Anything that contains amusement and distraction of thoughts is not allowed. Anything that distracts from remembering Allah and worshipping Allah and what benefits people in their religion and their life is not allowed. At the end, we must know that there are people who don't have integrity. And they don't have a religion or principles, all they care about is money. The problem is that these people's knowledge is steps ahead of ours. Whether you like it or not, they possess knowledge which you don't have. They use our ignorance to fill their pockets. They don't care about your health or your mood. That's why you have to stop and look at yourself. They're using you as a sacrifice to fill their pockets, so you have to be aware. I want you to at least be aware that these things are bad and they don't make your life easier. They make it harder, way harder. You consider the natural things which you enjoy during the day very annoying and heavy to do. All of this is because you made happiness a goal in your day. So your brain guided you to these very bad options. You don't realize that this is not happiness, it's an ecstasy that gives you temporary happiness. Allah, SWT, established a rule on earth, that happiness is always associated with hard work and effort. The true happiness, work hard and you'll achieve happiness even in our minds. The enjoyment you feel with PlayStation and video games and smartphones and social media. They're all temporary happiness, they're all just ecstasy, not happiness. It won't stay with you. As long as you shut it down, you'll feel so bad. You have to get away from these distractions that made your life harder. It wasted your time and wasted your life too. The problem is that many people say that we're way better than people who take drugs or cause problems. He doesn't know that he also does the same in the house. Video games are like cocaine to your mind. Different products with the same effect on your mind. The other thing is that we must know that we're not like the disbelievers. As Muslims, we hold on to the rope of Allah, SWT, who guides us to the best options. The more we improve our connection to Allah, SWT, the more He will guide us to the best results. And the greatest of these results is gardens as vast as the heavens and the earth. That's why they always tell the depressed to go and pray and improve your connection to Allah first. And this is the turning point: improve our connection with Allah and rely on Him to break out of this closed circle and this addiction. We set one day a week where we don't overuse devices. Only use it for necessary things. During that day, replace the time which you used to spend on devices and these addictive things with useful things that will benefit you in your life and the hereafter. For example, if you allocate that day to memorize Quran or read a new book, or learn a martial art or work out and improve your health or take in a new hobby, you'll realize that you'll feel better and that day will have good impact on your mood. Step by step until we add another day, we'll have 2 days a week where we don't use devices for entertainment. If you keep doing this and add another day each week, you'll be surprised that your body will release happiness hormones in a natural way. And you'll start feeling good in the day. In one day, I had a good feeling of 30 minutes. In the whole day, I felt good for 30 minutes, then it disappeared. But these 30 minutes meant the world to me. And it increased slowly. The same thing Bander experienced. You'll start loving the same things you used to love and do before 2020. Even when you eat, you won't have to use your phone. Your mind will automatically realize it's food enjoying time, so you'll focus more while eating. At the end, we must not have a new source of entertainment in our life without studying the results of this thing first. Even if this thing is not forbidden, we must know whether it has positive results or it's just a trait of a temporary happiness. Or it's just a trait of a temporary happiness in return for a permanent depression. With this we reached the end of the video, which was full of information and events. I hope that you found this video extremely helpful, and I hope that you share this video with people who suffer from this, because you'll be helping them a lot. This video can at least change their life and lifestyle. Glory and praise be to Allah. I testify that there is no God except you. I ask your forgiveness and turn to you in repentance. Take care of yourselves, I'll miss you. Peace be upon you.